Whoops. Well, hi and welcome to Glitch 2600. Who am I? Well, if I can find my button, I'm Brian, aka Glitch, your friendly host through all things geekery. And today we're doing a Glitch Byte, but more specifically, we are unboxing and looking at the RØDECaster Pro II. I just got it in. Of course, I ordered overnight. They said by 10:30, and they were a little late. So, I see. Yeah, you're in the same spot as me. I was stuck and waiting. I actually bumped it up when I found my B&H order, and so I bumped up to overnight, thinking it might get here just because the last 3 FedEx shipments I got, they decided to hold on to it for a day or two in Chicago. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to bump it up. It's supposed to be by 10:30, and they showed up just a little bit ago. So in Central Time, that's just about an hour late. So, but I wanted to get in and start showing some stuff around on here and hook it up right now. If I switch my cameras here, which bear with me, my stuff is a little screwed up. I've been doing some stuff remotely, and so my setup's kind of jacked up, but such is live streaming. So if I go and click over, you can see right now I'm using the RØDECaster Pro Normal or First Edition. I've got the cover. Of course, it didn't ship with the cover this time. They didn't have them in time for this. So right now I'm just going to throw that to the side. But that's what we're using right now. And, it's a great unit. It's wonderful. I use it for podcasts and live streaming. Great functionality. I did have the Live Track L8, and I loved that, but it didn't have some of the stuff like the big bottom and some of the AFX capabilities. It didn't work as well with some of my dynamic mics, but it was made more for music. So I switched over here and couldn't bring myself to sell my Live Track because that one didn't have line level inputs. I couldn't hook up music instruments to that as easily. There was a lot of little things here and there kind of missing. So once this RØDECaster Pro II came out, I thought, what the heck? This one pretty much has everything I was missing. So just as a kind of show, we're going to put this up overhead with my little notes. I just wanted to give a comparison on the boxes. This doesn't even show it well because it's a little close. So I'll move this a little bit more to the side, get that back there. But you can kind of see, this is the new box. This is the old box. They're lined up side by side. If I turn it sideways, you can see there's no special, photo tricks going on here. But that's about the size comparison going on there just for the box. So I wanted to show that. And now, let's do the really cool stuff. Let's bring this out. So you can kind of see, just looking at it there, what the comparison is, even just looking at the box size over the other one. It's about, the box is even slightly smaller than the Pro. If I put this over the Pro and line it up, the Pro hangs out about yay far. So that's already an indicator of, the size comparison, the size differences. So this literally just came in, so I'm going to slide off the little protective thingamabobber. We have the normal RØDECaster. It looks just like the old one for the most part for the box, but once you open it, you have their little stuff about, their cool headphones, the pod mic, which is what I'm using right now. I have a condenser and a set of pod mics with me to test, along with I have a FET head and a cloud lifter with me. So we can do a couple different tests. Right now, this mic that I'm using right now is using a FET head. I do like that because it goes right on the line. I haven't noticed a huge difference between the cloud lifter and the FET heads. And what's nice is the FET heads kind of stay out of the way and don't require 2 cables. 2 cables to me, just even though FET or the cloud lifter is extremely clean, just means 2 places for you to get just a little bit more noise in your line. So with the FET head, I kind of get around that. But it's got their normal marketing. Welcome to Next Level Audio. What I do like is they kind of stole an idea from the Mac Studio where the box kind of opens back like that and it's still stuck inside. as does the front side. So the front side kind of pulls down. The whole thing can open, but it can just kind of sit there like that too, especially if I don't screw it up. So first things first, you get this little next level audio box that if you open up, the only real thing in here, this is empty, it's empty, is power cable. I don't know that this part of the box was really needed for, you know, the Mickey Mouse style power plug, but you know, I'm not the maker of their packaging. So here's the actual unit, and that's pretty nice. And I'll compare that up here in just a second. I'm just going to move it to the side, and we'll take the nice loud plastic off. I do really wish the cover was here, because that would make a huge difference for how much I like having it out, because I don't like getting that dust. The next spot is just this main unit, and there's nothing in these little side areas. But if we open up this part, this box kind of comes out. If we open that and slide out, it comes with two things. And that's a power for the other half of it, which you'll notice one side is USB-C, because the other part, that's what this one takes compared to the screw-in jack. And then it comes with a nice long USB-C data cable. So let's see if we can close this up and get that ready to move out of here, because we don't need all of this junk. So there we go. Nice and easy and out of the way. We'll move that. We'll worry about that later. So let's get the mean potatoes up here. So you can kind of see, sorry, I'm saying so 8 billion times. You can kind of see that size comparison again, where it's just sitting over the side of it. So quite a bit smaller, which is nice for my case and as I carry it. But it's equally solid. In fact, like this one that has the feet on there, and you know, the current RØDECaster has that slot underneath where you can kind of slide cables under. You don't have that really here. In fact, I kind of wish, because of this new mount that you have that you can thread in Visa, I almost kind of wish this did raise up a little bit, because I'd like to leave a mount on the bottom and it not really get in the way. So I'm looking at some quick release mounts and some things I might do with that. But until it's got its venting, well, grips, I guess that's not venting, but little grips on the side. But the top is still metal, still feels super solid. It's not quite as metal as the other one, but it's super solid. I mean, it's a nice little brick. It feels almost about the same weight, which with new technology and new pieces, that's pretty nice. But looking through and from a connector point of view, this is where I was talking about. We've got our USB. We'll flip that around so you guys can see it right side up. We got our power. Now it uses USB-C as opposed to using the lock-in. You've got your network jack, and your micro USB, which is drastically faster than the old one from what I've been reading. You've got your primary computer connection, and then a secondary USB, which right now, I suspect at some point they're going to put in the coding so that your Wireless Go Pro or your Wireless Go 2s can be controlled in there, and you can end up with multiple channels. I could see them doing something really cool like that in the future, and I'm hoping, because I have those. But you can also use it to loop back into your computer, loop it to 2 of them. I suspect, depending on if you get your audio settings right on your iPad, you could use it to extend audio you might already have on your iPad and bring it in as a pad source. So I'll have to do some testing with that. Then you have your 3/4, is that 3/4? Yeah, the full length headphone connectors. There isn't a front one, and that does kind of irritate me a little bit, because when I do a podcast, sometimes I have 4 people and it's nice to hook up off the front, and I'll just share it with the one on number 1. But I've got a couple ideas for that. One would be obviously just put a headphone splitter run into a active headphone. I could also take these monitor outs and kind of bring them in. There's just some stuff that you can only do with headphone 1 with some of your talkback that's useful. But now we have the Nurix, if if I'm saying that right, preamps. And that's what's different. That's where I can now finally get rid of that Zoom Live Track L8 because I have that straight line input. So I can actually hook up a guitar. I can actually hook up my drum set, although that'll be a little tricky per drums. Luckily, electronic drum set, yes, you can do that. If it's a full and you're doing, mics per drum, you'd have to do a little different setup or, record your tracks multiple times by putting, bass into one, snare and toms, so you can control each one separately to a point. But that's the back on here. It's just a little bit more compact, a little bit cleaner in its design. The front, so the old one had 8 sliders. This one has 6, but that doesn't mean it has any less. So obviously you have your 4 core ones, and then it does a Bluetooth and USB, but you don't need the phone one anymore because there's no TRS jack in the back anymore. Instead, it uses ultra wideband Bluetooth. And with ultra wideband Bluetooth, you get really good audio. But on top of that, you can use the SC19 cable that they have, which I do have over in another spot. I'd have to go run and grab it real quick. But you can use that to plug in your iPhone directly in and control it that way. It's MFE or MFI certified. So, you've got your smart pads now, which is different than just sound pads. Which you can't see the colors on this one. All the colors can be readdressed, recolored, which you couldn't do on this old one, which always bugged me. I love green. I know Tom Buck's a big blue person, but my number one was always pink. So if you look on a lot of my mics, I'll have them tagged. This one's tagged blue, but it's going into pink because I was just lazy and didn't take it off. But in general, sorry, you can redo all of these, and these are all reassignable as opposed to this one where you have to have 1 through 4. This is what they are. So if you want to repurpose this to be something else, it's because you plugged something else in. If I plugged in my wireless Go 2s using the audio out and brought it into the phone line, it's just because it wasn't a phone at that point. And that's all it was really doing. Otherwise, you still have your listen modes and your mute modes on there. And I do love that you have this toggle now for the smart pads, since the pads can do so much more now. It bugged me on the old one that I'd have to click a few things, and then finally get to it. But now that we've said that, why don't we get this plugged in? So hold on for me for just a second while we get this plugged in. We'll bring it up live, and we'll see what the setup actually looks like. So let's get that on there, plugged in. Oh, power. In fact, if I'm really smart, could save a step. Take out my card that was on my other one already. Save some time. Put my little 32 gig card in there. And then let's work on getting this plugged in. Of course, the power is just a second away. Might as well grab the phones at the same time. So I completely forgot to do that. And there we go. And we're powering up. Now, hopefully, there we go. So bring that up there. Let's see if we can get some of that glare off. Move that away so you can see the screen a little bit better. All right, so as we power up, we'll kind of zoom you in just a little bit. All right, maybe not quite that far. And as we power up, I'm gonna open this puppy up. And we have that next screen now. So this is, like I said, brand new, straight out. We just tap next, get updated. And this is where you can choose how you want to do it. Now, I do have the new companion app downloaded, so we can do it via the companion app, or I can tie it into my Wi-Fi or my wired. let's just might as well show the other configuration there. So I'm going to plug that in. And now, because we can, let's just launch up the other software, which of course closed. So it's just called Rode Central. I'm going to bring that over, maybe. Or it doesn't want to go to the other screen. I was going to set up a nice screen share, but let's see here. Let's go like that. And we will cut to me. See if we can switch this one to be the app. Rode Central. Let's see. Does it show it? Huh. There you go. You can see I hooked it up and it said, hey, needs to use this update. Let's see if this other screen shows both. Oh, just shows that. All right. Well, let me bring that up. We'll just click update. It's going to tell us download in progress. Do not unplug, any of the devices, which kind of makes sense. It's just going to pull that update through. So let's just go back over here and talk on it just a little bit more. Obviously, if you guys have questions, by all means, ask away. I will do my best to answer them. I'm new on it, but I'm not new to the RØDECaster, and I'm not new to audio. So for people, background, I owned a music store for years. I'm also a computer geek and cybersecurity guy. Grew up through the video and photography realm, along with working radio for a while. So there's a good chance I might know, or I know people that we can get the answers for you. But if you have a question on here, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to just pop over because we can see a little bit more of the screen. But let's do that real quick. And there we go. So you can't really see on here right now. Well, but you can kind of see the colors, how they're already set up on there. Pulling through, we've got our record button now, which is, considerably smaller. The screen tilted, which I will say that tilt, as everyone has been saying, is really nice. You never really realize how much you like that tilt, because I kind of always tilted my other box just a little bit when I was out. Like I said, I just rigged this up down in the bar for a second. But with this one, that tilt on the screen really does a lot, I think, for the visibility on there. Looking at the sliders, I actually kind of like the feel on these sliders. They're pretty much the same, but it's a little bit more fluid. For these ones, I keep a cover on mine all the time. You can't really hear it well, but there's just a little bit of drag. Where these, I don't really hear or feel any drag. There's a little bit of resistance. It gives some feedback there. But that's what you want. As I'm up and down my own mic, I just realized. So we'll pop that back up. So hopefully you enjoyed the in and out audio going on there. But these sliders definitely feel a little bit more fluid, with little to no drag. It's just very, very fluid. Of course, one of the first things I want to do is reprogram the pink to be green, because I can. You have your new haptic dial, or I can't remember the exact words they're using for it, but it's a multi-purpose dial. So on a lot of these screens, when you're in here, to tool through them, you can just turn that dial left and right, and then push in. So it has some haptic feedback there. I do know some people have been wanting, you can use it to control your monitor out. I do know some people have been wanting it to do like a master audio. And I'm wondering if enough people say stuff to Rode, if they'll turn around and add it. They've already mentioned that obviously we've hit the end of kind of what this thing can do, of the original one, which is fine. It's gone, and they've had some amazing firmware updates that have added a lot to it. But then every now and then they had to take some stuff out, like reverb and a couple other ones, just because the processing wasn't quite as strong. This one has a quad core processor with 4 gigs of memory inside. So with that means you can have 64 different sound pads if you want to use them as sound pads in there. So think 8 pages, because if I'm right, they mentioned 64, and you can have those. Of course, I haven't tested how long of the audio that's on there and all that. Maybe you won't get 64 if you have hour-long intros on your smart pad, but in general, you can fit quite a bit on here as you go through it, as opposed to having to kind of tool through it on there. The other cool thing is, while we have Rode Central, and I kind of showed you a quick what that is, if you've used the Wireless Go 2, you've already used Rode Central before. So it's a little different than the old mic for it, or the Procaster or RØDECaster Pro app. But in general, it's just going to feel the same as the other, and it's nice because you can put both in, but you don't really need to use it. I'm using it for updating right now. I'll later tie it into Wi-Fi and my Ethernet. But if you look on it right now, see it's saying updating via USB. So on my side, the Connect went through, so that took a good 5 minutes. I'm not on the fastest Ethernet on the world here. They're finally putting gig in my area. So that's how long it took on about 100 to 200 meg connection. So not too bad. Of course, all I get on my screen right now is the blinking kind of blue. If I were to show you that one again, you can kind of see, update in progress. That's all I really see on my side right now is that. On the screen itself, what is kind of nice, if I go back there, is that now it's got the tooling across line. It would be nice to see kind of a progress bar. Maybe you'll get there. It looks like it's booting up now. Again, all I still have on my screen is the update in progress. So I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to go. But yeah, it just kind of tells you on the connection. It didn't take a whole lot to get it up there. Obviously, they pre-seeded these ones out before they put the latest, greatest. They're most likely working on that firmware right up to last minute. But I suspect we're going to see a lot of really good firmwares from them. I know they're going to have stuff planned and things added, because the functionality to do more in this one is just so much higher. So with that, adding in those types of functions, adding in that thing where I suspect in the future you'll be able to plug in USB mics, especially Rode mics. I would love to see where the Wireless Go 2 could go in there, and you could control each of the 2 channels on there respectively inside. So if you had a combined channel, obviously it would show up as one, but if it's a separated channel for each mic, or for each lapel mic, then you could have them on separate sliders. That would be amazing for me. Right now I use loopback and split the channels that way to bring them into Ecamm or other places. But when I hooked it up, do you wish to format? Yeah, I don't care if we format what was on there, because I had already backed everything up. Yes, I'm sure. Which is the thing, obviously, taking it from one to the other, you don't get to keep them on there. It does wipe it out. And then we are back to our setup. So now we get to pick, do we want English? Yep. So that's where you can tap in on that, just push in, and it'll select it. Otherwise, if I just tap, it'll go. What's the date and time? Well, I can tell you the date is right, but because the time zone, we would be, come on, Central Time for me. And the time is not 5 o'clock. It is what, 12? 16, and how many seconds? 16. And we'll wait for it to hit 25 now. And there we go. Now, I don't know that I need to hit any more to update. I already have a firmware update. I'm not the type that likes to send usage statistics. I'm sure it helps them, but I'm not the type that likes to do that. But you'll see up on the screen now, what we have is there's the default setup. So create a default show using default settings, setup wizard, or import a show. And anytime you make a new show, that's what it's going to bring up, is that wizard. I'm going to go ahead and just do the setup wizard so we can kind of see. So the setup wizard will take you step by step, and then let's go ahead and zoom in a bit for you guys so maybe you can see it a little bit better. But we'll take you step by step through the configuration or the instructions to configure your device. This can be accessed through the help menu or when creating a new show. Next. Can produce very high volumes. Yep. Getting started. Let's set all the faders to unity. That's that white line right there. That's unity. And that's why that's marked how it is. So we set all of our faders to the white line. And we'll go from there. Getting started, ensure all the headphones are turned down to the minimum. Yep. And connect your headphones and tap next. So for me, I'm going to pop open these in-ear monitors. I'm probably not going to plug them in right now, but they're just a set of in-ear monitors that can kind of hide behind your back for the shots, you know, for when you're on here. They kind of disappear. I love them. They give really good audio. Then I normally put them on an extension cable using kind of this setup here. So I use one of these and the other. But for this time, we're just going to steal this from one input. So we're going to steal one of those, pop it on there, and then plug into headphone 1. So in this case, they say slowly until you can hear sound at a comfortable level. So what you can't hear is right now, I wonder if I can kind of turn up enough for the mic to hear. So yeah, it's playing just a little bit of music through the headphones. So you can kind of see and hear as you set it up. So it's telling you to set it to a comfortable level, which for me is about there. Tap next. And then it wants to know about the inputs. The rear combo inputs can be used to connect a microphone or anything else. And this will allow you to assign each type of input. Well, for me, I'm just using a microphone. But you can see right here where I can set, you know, guitar for line level or straight in, so instrument or which type. Mine are all going to be the same right now. I'm going to go ahead and leave them how they are. Now, if I wanted to, I could switch these or turn selections off. Now, what type of microphone do I have on each one? And this is where you can select different styles. So you can see there's a condenser on there, a generic dynamic, a generic condenser, or they have these kind of profiles built in. So you have a pod mic, the broadcaster, the Procaster, the NT1, the NT1A, the RE20, the SM7B, so not even their microphone. And that looks to be it. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and still set microphone 1 to be the pod mic. And this is where we can kind of plug some stuff in. And we'll get that set up as audio inside too, so we can kind of see what that sounds like. But I'm going to go ahead and pull this mic cable out and get this set in. So I'm just taking a normal pod mic and plugging in my audio, send it on a table because I'm being super fancy, and then plug it in. So you can see on there right now, this is where its gain is just default set to. So I'm just holding this in front of my face, about the same distance I would normally use. And if I needed to, I could plug more in, or I could increase that gain. But looking at this, it's coming in pretty well. We'll have to test the audio in a second, but we'll through there. But just to show what that setup screen is like. And then do you want to use any type of preset? So podcast studio, a neutral, or a broadcast. You can make more settings and adjust these later. So I'm going to leave it on podcast. And then it's going to ask me for number 2. I'm going to do the exact same stuff through all of them. I'm just going to accept, because right now we'll just change that later if we need to. And then Bluetooth channel is ideal for connecting devices. Well, we'll do that later too. And then it's talking about our different USB channels. So USB 1 can be used for stereo input and multi-channel output. Keep in mind, there is no mix minus on USB 1. Then there's USB 1 chat. That features the mix minus for your communications apps. So it just takes you out of there, so you don't get as much, it takes your main mix out, so you're not looping on yourself for the most part. And then USB 2 can be used as an additional and output. That one you can turn mix minus on and off. On USB 1, there is no mix minus, or there isn't any. On USB 1 chat, there's mix minus, but you can't turn it off. And USB 2, the other port on the back, you can bring into the same computer. That one, you can turn mix minus on or off. And this is where we can reassign our channels, drag and drop them. So as you can tell, going across the board, this one shows 1, 2, 3, 4 mics, and then Bluetooth, and then chat. So, yeah, that's your chat channel coming in, or your main USB. And then you have, oh, sorry, that's not right. Chat, and then pulling a blank on, oh, SoundPad or SmartPad is right here. And then you have your USB. Those are all on virtual faders, but I can move these around if I wanted to. I could say this one's over here and drag it, and then they'd be turned around. So if I zoom in now a bit, you can kind of see, maybe. I just picked one up and drug it over. Now, I don't want to mix and put my input 2 on input 1, but if I needed to, if I was doing something a lot and I only had like 2 people on here, I might take 1 and 2 and leave that there and then put other things on these other faders. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at default. Now we're talking about the smart pads. So let's scoot this back just a little bit so you can see it. For the smart pads, it's letting us know there's various types of smart pads that can be used for sounds, effects, mixer actions, or MIDI. And each icon denotes when you put it on there. All shows and settings are saved, or all device settings and preferences are saved as a show. It can be loaded and unloaded from the shows menu. So in this case, if I wanted to, I could type a different name. I'm going to leave it as default show for right now. And then you can pick an icon to show it differently. I'm going to leave it as the RØDECaster looking little icon, or the Rode one. And now I'm ready to go. Which you can see, this is popping on there, and we can kind of see the audio channel popping up and down. But I also just wanted to go ahead and show you guys, before we do too much with this and before I bring it into Ecamm, let's switch our setup. And I'm upside down. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the Rode software here. So hopefully you guys can see that okay. So that just shows you the RØDECaster in here, how much space is being taken up by it, and then some of the options we have. So this is all inside Central. So if I click back, click on here, it just shows that's my default show. That's what's set up. If I wanted to, I can configure all the same stuff I had on there directly in here. So if I did audio setup, that same spot where I can drag stuff through, or I can do stereo chaining, which you'll notice for stereo chaining, I can't chain 1 and 3 together for a stereo channel. they have to be side by side. So I can chain 1 and 2 together, I can chain 2 and 3, or 3 and 4 for stereo chaining. But otherwise, if I wanted to move these around or change the color, this is where I could do that. I could tap this and say, you know what, I don't want that to be green, that color. I want it to be pink, or whatever shade of pink that was that they had. Purple, yeah. Are they counting that as red? No, it was pink. It's just bright on that side. So pink, which changes the color on my pad, and then I can go, and this one should be green because I like green, which now you can see redid my colors down here. And I can reprogram these ones to be other colors also, you know, as I drag and drop them around. Up here in the corner, this is where I could say, hey, my monitor out, you know, how I'm doing that right now. I can pick different ones on my system. But aside from that, you kind of saw the audio setup. Device configuration, this is where we can change a few things. That's a little bit more accessibility based. For the most part, here's some display, so you can have automatic brightness, which is pretty neat. Does it dim after a bit of time? Right now it's set to never. How bright do you want your buttons? Do you want your buttons brighter or darker? The display. Metering. I will tell you, I always love broadcast metering. It gives way finer to control, so I switch to that. And then there's haptics. Do I want haptic feedback? So when I touch the screen, do I want to feel a dot or anything when I do it? So there's none, or always on, or just on hold. I'm going to leave it in the default for right now. Outputs lets me pick the type of headphones I'm using. So for one, if it thinks it's that type, or is it a low sensitivity, high sensitivity phone? I'm not using the Rode ones there, but I can come through and reprogram these later. For my monitor, do I want to auto mute or have fixed output level? Fixed output level means it's going to be basically at unity, at line level, and you can't move the slider up and down for it. It doesn't really change anything. Auto mute just means if you are using the monitor outputs and you move a slider up, it will mute it so you don't get feedback coming back through. If we move to listen, I like mine, obviously you get after fader. So when I hit the listen button, it's still after the fader. If I needed to, for the work I was doing, I could do pre-fader. So it wouldn't matter if I have it turned down or not. It just, you hear it at unity. I like mine after fader. If you're using multi-track for recording or USB, you can turn on, off, and whether it's pre-fader or post-fader. Because you might want to have, for your multi-track, you might want your USB to be, you know, going post-fader to something, and then you might want your recording to be without any, or as pre-fader, in which case you have a recording that hasn't been affected as much. Same thing from that kind of bypassing processing. It's if you want to turn off the processing. And then in processing, you can see master. It's not setting it per channel on that one, but whether you have the master compeller and what you have it set to, and if there's any output delay. I can delay mine in Ecamm, but if I needed to, I could set an output delay here to delay it in further milliseconds. And then system is, am I doing MIDI control? I'm not doing MIDI on mine, but I could. Showing the firmware. And then if I had anything else set up on there. So that's what I wanted to kind of quickly show from that point of view. I'm going to come back here. I'm on my default show. Like I said, there's nothing else that pops up on there. Nope. So let's go ahead and cut back to show that overhead shot. So now that we have that on here, and again, feel free to ask any questions. I'm willing to try and do whatever is needed. But I think the next important part would be to bring this into Ecamm so you can kind of see what it sounds like. So for a second, we're going to get a little bit of double audio, and then I'm going to mute. Actually, I'm going to mute my channel, add in the other one, and then we'll unmute so you can hear what it sounds like. Okay, so here is the new RØDECaster Pro 2 main at just Unity. So no fathead on here, nothing, anything like that. Let me just upside down. Well, you're going to hear audio now because let me unmute the other. So this is me with, this was not even turned all the way up, so let's turn it all the way up. But this is just at Unity with no fathead on there. So just straight in, where my other mic here has this fathead on the back that's a line booster, which makes me have to boost my gain. So just kind of let you hear room noise with this one where it's at. Now switching to the one I was using before, this is it with the fathead on there and just sitting just as it is. So the fathead gives pretty good sound. So you're probably not hearing a ton of line noise unless we really turn it up. If I turn it way up, so we'll do that for a second, I'll be silent. Okay, now we'll do it with the other one and I'll turn it way up and just be silent. Now keep in mind with that, I have a wine chiller just right off to the side and it's kicking on and it's got a fan that's just running. So it's not a sound treated room, anything like that. But I think you can kind of tell the difference coming in off that just from me watching the meters on there. I could see just a little bit. So that base level was a little bit higher on the old unit, which makes sense. This is going to boost it per line. Like I said, this is me on the current system, how it is, or on the new system, on the Pro 2, which I'm assuming sounds pretty good. In fact, I'm going to go back to the other main one. I grab my headphones. Like I said, there's a reason why I put these things on extension cables. So let's just do that. So I have a little bit more room. We can hear a little bit more. So what happens when you rig it on the fly? So we'll unplug this puppy, throw a cable on there. Then we'll be able to hear and tell, and then we can play with some effects and all that fun stuff. We'll take this. I said pretty big fans of this style of headphones because you can just kind of throw it behind. And if you want to, you can kind of hide it behind your back, pull it down through your shirt, and they just kind of blend in a little bit. These ones I got are a little bit more techy because that's my style. So, you know, they're going to stand out just a little bit more. There we go. So yeah, listening to it on here, I'm going to flip back through. And this is drastically less noise also on the headphone preamp. Even with me going through this stuff here, which is actually going to add a little bit more line noise, I'm going to hear a little bit more static using this little extra cable. I mean, I'm going through that and then an adapter. So going to get a little bit more than if I was using maybe the Bluetooth connector and doing it that way. Bump myself up just a little bit. But no, I think this sounds pretty good, especially compared to the other. I don't have any effects turned on or any processing, so maybe we should just give that a shot and see what that goes from there. just so you guys don't hear me setting that down, I'm going to go like that, and then we'll switch over back to the overhead. We'll go back to this mic. And so let's give the stuff a shot here. I do find it funny. Here's all the sound pad settings kind of pre-built in. You kind of see them on there. So it comes with built-in, music bed, which, see, which that's interesting. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I'm going to go with no. That's interesting. If I need to make a setting change on my system. Because I didn't see anything move on the other one. So let me grab that speakers, broadcast audio. Gonna try something else there. All right, that looked like it was working that time, the chat. It's like the main. Let me try that again. Okay, it just was not quite mixing in right. So it comes with that, it comes with the air horn. Sorry. The applause, record scratch. I do like that it says the names on here, because if you wanted to see the old way I had to do, I used to just write it onto a sheet, which the old one came with stuff that went over this, so you could write on it if you wanted to. Of course, we get crickets, chimes, and it's set to play all the way through, and that one's stop and start. But then we have sound effects. So
this, is the voice disguise.
And then you can turn it back off, so it's set to latch on there and hold on. And then you have your pitch up.
So this is kind of fun.
And then you've got your megaphone if you want to sound really important or make a point in your live stream.
Or you can sound like a monster, I guess.
Am I a large robot? Small robot?
And then it looks like we can censor. So if I was going to say, this is the best machine ever, then we've got that. And ducking just means if I had other things coming in, this is where channel 1 gets a little special, is if I do ducking, then if I had audio coming in on anything else and I hit this in here, you guys would only hear me during it, so nothing else would come through, which is kind of nice. Wondering if we can actually mix that with the sound pad. So we're going to get this one going. And then in theory, see how it kind of ducks down while I'm talking? And then comes back and gets loud again, so that my voice always trumps the other people. So that's kind of fun with the ducking, but those are the quick pads. So we haven't even got into starting and messing with the actual settings inside. So let's pop that open. So I know we can tap on here, and this is where we can change that setting and that processing. So right now I don't have any processing or hardly any. Oh, now it's off. So this is what I sound like without processing. This is with their base processing. So if I add that back in, See how it changed my voice just a little bit? Like I said, if I wanted a little bit more sound on here, I could amp that up and get a little bit more, obviously a little bit more gain to my voice, and you can hear a little bit as I handle the mic here. I'm going to go ahead and set that back to normal because I don't think it was doing too bad. But this is where, if for the bass settings, if I wanted to, I could add more depth by clicking and then now using this dial to add more depth to my voice so it gets a little deeper, or I could tie it back and lose some of that depth, some of that kind of big bottom. So I'll put that back up there. Sparkle's kind of the same thing, so it adds a little bit more to the high tones of my voice. So if I turn it up, you'll get a little bit more of that high tone, and if I turn it way down, you'll lose some of that upper part or timbre of my voice. So if I take it back to about where it was, this is where we're at, and you can tune these in for yourself. Then punch is much like a compressor, so it just kind of brings the two in, and that's all it really does, kind of average it out just to add a little bit more, so you don't have that big top and bottom going on there. And then you have your effects. So if I wanted to have reverb, I could click that and then turn on reverb, and we'll get a little bit of reverb going on, or a lot of reverb going on if we really want some. And then you can turn the low cuts, high cuts, the size of the room. So let's go large hall, and now I'm in a super large music room, or I could be in a small room. So just kind of show you what that looks like. We'll take the level back to neutral. Maybe turn my reverb back off. And then we can also get, echo. And you can use you can use these together, and you can change that decay and the delay. So the delay is how far between when you say something that the next part of the echo comes through, and the decay is how fast it comes off. So like when you say echo, 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 the decay is how many times and how quickly it falls off those echoes on the end, where the delay is just whether you're going echo, 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 or whether it's faster, echo, echo, echo. That's what that does. And then you have your high cut and low cut just to work in those frequencies for voice. So if I wanted to, I could go there. Otherwise, if I come back to processing, what's nice is I can go in and hit advanced. But on advanced, I have a little bit more power. One, I could pan it left and right. So for my audio for stereo, if I wanted to, I could pan it or pan it to the left. If you set up a stereo interface, it automatically pans to the hard right or automatically pans to the hard left for each channel. So if I had it on 1 and 2 as a stereo input, so I had two devices, it'll automatically take one and shoot it to the far right and one to the far left to get you that sound. Now I can also change for another mic just by pushing the button at the top here to switch to, so that's pretty nice. And I can also toggle here, but otherwise I can also bring my other effects like big bottom, if I want to add a little bit there, and it gets instant feedback. So if I stop making noise, but otherwise, if I want to tune in the big bottom, I can click there and go from 90 hertz up to something around here if I want to, and take it all the way, and you can kind of see that instant feedback that it's doing. So that's turning it off and then turning it back on. I'm going to take that back to 90 because I'm still going to be messing around. But you can get that drive in a couple other settings. 90, close enough. But you can also tag through them up here at the top. So we were on the big bottom. There's the equalizer. So that's something we did not have with the other that I had with my Live Track L8. So now I've got the high bell, mid bell, and low bell, and I also have the high gain, mid gain, and low gain, which is nice because as it moves the settings on here, it allows me to tune in room sound that I might not want to hear and get it out of it. or voice sound. So a little bit of both, depending on like if you have a loud air conditioner in a room, you might be able to sacrifice a little bit of voice and then you can compress it and get a little bit more out of their voice, but still kind of take out that air conditioner by moving in your kind of low tones and messing around with those based on the hertz. So at like 1,000, this is what I sound like that way, or 10,000. And then without it, you can kind of hear it's lost a chunk to my voice. So back to 10. And that's what it sounds like. And it's best to just kind of play around with those. If you guys want me to show a setting, I can, but we could play with equalizer all day. Yes, it's not like a 12 band equalizer, but this is pretty powerful and pretty nice. Like I said, if we do gain, there's 2.5. This is with a little bit more, so you can kind of hear how it brought a different tone to my voice compared to here, where it's kind of become almost muted. So if we go back to what they say the default is, and you should always kind of tune it to your voice later. So just kind of spend some time playing with it, and then you can turn off a section by hitting. So I could turn off all the mids. So now I'm only doing high and low, or I can add the mid back in. I can turn off all the lows. And this is what I sound like without any low help. And this is what I sound like with it. And then you have your compressor, which, the compressor just brings down the line. So if you bring up your threshold, you can kind of see that's what it sounds like there, and then bring it back down. And your attack and gain. So you can kind of play around with that if you've done some with it, but otherwise it's kind of default built in. The noise gate, you can kind of see how quick it falls off. I'm not hearing it be too crazy. I do know, like Tom Buck was talking, that he moved his attack and release quite a bit lower. So if I remember right, he went pretty far down to where his attack is a little bit more like that, or pretty close to. And then the release he put there. So that seems like it falls off pretty good and gets right below that noise floor. That's what it's showing. So this is while I'm talking, there's a little bit of noise floor and stuff there. And then when I stop, it goes to silent. So that's pretty nice. So the noise gate on the other one was pretty much almost unusable. You could do some stuff with it, and you could use it in some extreme, but it was pretty noticeable, even with a lot of tuning. Yeah, I mean, you had to spend a lot of time tuning it per voice. This one pretty much works right out of the box. So I'm curious when I go and do my live show, when we do Boozy Banter for the live wine, beer, and spirits show. I'm curious to see, because we do that live at the wine shop, and there's a lot of industrial little equipment, and it picks up quite a bit. So I'm curious to see how well this does with that. Of course, you have your de-esser. So if you're like me and you sell seashells by the seashore, it takes that S pop out, where if I turn it off and I sell seashells by the seashore, you'll hear a lot more S kind of going on with it. So S versus S, where it kind of controls it down. You don't hear quite so much S pop going on. And then you have your high pass filter. The high pass filter is great because that's where you really can cut out some of that stuff like air conditioner and background noise by cutting out the frequency that's on there, to where you're saying, hey, anything above this that's above human voice, I kind of don't want to hear as much. There's a few things you can do there. So it's at 70. If I go like that, it kind of brings it in quite a bit more. And then I can let more in, which you'll kind of hear more in the background, kind of hear more noise. And then we're back to panning. So if I go back home, so to get access to that, again, all you have to do is you can either tap the icon that it is, or you can tap the button, or you can tap right there on the screen and tap what it is. And then it'll bring you right back in here. And this is where, again, you can have presets, and this is where you can make your own presets. So I can go back to studio, Maybe I want to be broadcast sound. Maybe it's a little bit more neutral. And what those do is they set these settings for you automatically and get them a little bit closer. Then you have your stuff here where the same stuff we had on the Rode Central app, where remember how I said we can link certain ones for stereo, but they have to be side by side. So that's where if I hit that too, it'd link these two together, that'd become a stereo channel. Or I can do this and I can still change the color. So that's the color one there. Do I want to change the faders around? And to get there, it's pretty simple when you're on any one of these. So you just click in that little icon right there, the little gear, you tap it, and then you can click on anything you want and kind of change around. But if I wanted to link through or change the color, I just click which one, change the color. Otherwise, I can tap there and I can change my faders around. Not while recording, because you wouldn't want to knock yourself off. But if you're not recording, you can just pick one up and drag it around like that and put it on 4. So 4 is now on fader 2 and whichever way. And then you can go back home or you can just back into it, which is pretty nice. So that's where we're at on there. Otherwise, if we click up here in the gear while it's going, this is where we have a lot more configuration options. So if we go to system, it's just like what we saw in the other one. What do I want for Bluetooth? Am I searching for and connecting a Bluetooth device? What's my network? Do I want to connect it to Wi-Fi? What's the IP? So if I click to connect to Wi-Fi, do I want to join a network? Please join a network. So I can join. It'll go searching for networks. I'm kind of curious to see what it does here. Come on, find a network. There we go. So now it found my home network. And if I wanted to, I could click it and then I'm sure it'll just ask me for a password. I can type it in, which I'll probably do later. Advanced is if you're going to do hard-coded IP configuration. Obviously, MIDI is the same thing. Are you going to do MIDI control? And if you're a MIDI person, all the power to you. Then information lets you check for updates and gives you information about it. So that's the system. Show is just like what we saw before. We can make a default show, make another show. So like for me, I have Boozy Banter, and then I have the Glitch 2600, but we also do a happy hour every now and then that we call Hop Hacker now, that we're moving our name to. So I can have a different configuration for all of those. Or maybe I have a show that I do with my best friend. I don't know. We'll see. But with that, I can make another show in here, or I can configure it and I would see my recordings. So if I hit record in here and start recording, we'll get a recording. I might mess with that here in just a second. You can change the icon that's associated to it. You can rename it, import or export to the card or to your computer. Otherwise, you've got the display settings, which we already saw. Again, I really like using the broadcast meters. Otherwise, your haptics and your brightness. And then what's the record do? So you can have the record button, a single press will pause it, and pressing and holding it will stop, or you can have a single press will stop. I don't want to do that. I'll press and hold. There's times I want to pause, or you can flip them around. Maybe you do want a single press, but I'm always nervous that I'm going to hit it inadvertently. And because of that, I really like having the option to be able to switch those around. I'm going to leave it in this one to where I can tap it and it'll just pause. But, depending on your workflow, maybe you want the bottom option where you press it and it just stops and you have to press and hold it to pause it. And then, like I said, we already had the faders. We showed that section. Outputs, again, this is where it gets kind of fun. This is where you can set your headphones. So the headphones I'm on, are they high sensitivity ones or low sensitivity? This will increase the output. Turn down your headphone first. So if I do that, now it just output a little bit more into my headphones. This one a little less, and then this is the default Rode one, which sounds pretty good, even though I'm not using those headphones. Again, those monitor settings, whether you auto mute or have fixed line output, which could be useful if you're bringing that into a camera. You could go and take your monitor and make it a balanced cable or use a balance cable and bring that in. Otherwise, you could just use a headphone jack as a hack if you're worried about sync and trying to bring it into like your Sony camera. That would be one way, is you can use one of the headphones and then you can fader the headphone, which is one way to do it. Then the storage, like I said, I only put a 64 or 32. I should probably put it bigger, but I can erase or put it into transfer mode, and transfer mode just sets it up so that it's readable as a device inside my computer. Otherwise, my listen, like we said, was the after fader or the pre-fader. I like after fader because I want to hear where I'm at for it, but depending on what you're doing, there's times where pre-fader could be useful. Then again, whether you're multi-track, is it pre-fader? If it's pre-fader, do you want to bypass the processing? Some people might do that too. If you're doing multi-track recording, you can record to the USB or run it over USB with processing into your card by bypassing processing. That way, if you screwed up your processing, you have a fallback. You have a way to be safe with it. So I'm going to have mine off, and USB, you can't turn it off because it's just there if you need it. And then there's that processing, that master compeller, if I need to increase that. I find they do pretty good settings out of the box so that you can't get too loud and affect too much. And yeah, it might be amping out a little bit on here, but not terrible. I mean, you're not losing my voice just because I'm holding it an inch from my face and practically yelling into it. So, along with that output delay, which again, I still do that mine in Ecamm. So there's your outputs. And then that leaves us with the smart faders, which are pretty sweet. As I was saying, you can have, and I'm using the button on the bottom. I could tap it here, but I'm just using the button down on the bottom to switch between them and see how I can add more pages and more stuff. So there's the music bed. If I clicked in here, I could do a few different things. I could change the color. Maybe I don't want it to be red. Maybe I want a different color. Or maybe I want to edit how it works. So right now, this is where I could toggle and do some different edits on here. So we'll test something else and show you how we can loop and playback and all that in a second. There's the default ones. I have a few other ones because essentially you got a pack with the old set. So I'm going to bring that in. And then you have obviously your voice effects and your mixer controls. So in the voice effects, this is
where if I want to edit,
maybe not turn on. There we go, turn it off. But I could set different ones in here in the latching. So whether you want latching or not. So we won't turn that one on right now. But let's go to a new pad. Let's mess with that. Let's add a new. Let's do a sound. What's really cool is I can record this. And I can mess around and be like, the RØDECaster is amazing. And now, because it's set here, I can tap it. The RØDECaster is amazing. And it just outputs. But now maybe I want to trim some off. So if I want to trim some off, I can slide this back and trim some of that dead on the front where I was quiet and then hit it. The RØDECaster is amazing. And it just stops. But maybe I want it to fade out and fade in. So if I want to fade it in, I'd grab this upper slider or fade it out, and I can slide that in. And now it'll fade out. Let's go really dramatic so you can kind of really see what it's like. The RØDECaster is amazing. There we go. So you can kind of see while that was messing around there, but you can fade in, which is really great if you have a show intro. So like for us, for Boozy Banter, Matt does an amazing, and Brian did an amazing, the other Brian did an amazing intro for it, and we hit it every single time. I tap it, and that gives me a really nice fade in, fade out. But I can also toggle my other settings up here. So whether I want to loop, so if I have it loop, obviously. The RØDECaster is amazing. The RØDECaster. We don't need to hear that all day. The toggle, whether it's a hold style. So right now, or the way it was a one shot. So if I click it, the RØDECaster is amazing. It'll just do that. The RØDECaster is amazing. Every time I hit the pad, it just restarts it from the beginning. Where this way, I can turn it toggle as the on off. So I can hit the RØDECaster, and then I can stop it by tapping it. And then next
The
time I hit it,
RØDECaster. The Rode.
it'll just start from the beginning. Hold means I have to hold it down. So if I'm
The
holding it,
RØDECaster is a.
I can stop
The RØDECaster.
and then let go. And again, that whole one shot, you just tap it and it goes through. And you notice on here, there is the replay option or not. So right now it's on. So this just causes it to replay every time, or on and off. And
The
it just starts
RØDECaster.
from the beginning. If I switch this, I can have it continue. So I can hit
The RØDECaster
and it stops. And then I hit
is
continue,
amazing.
which is really good if you have an intro and you're covering like maybe a fact, maybe you pre-recorded someone, like it could be maybe a wine dealer was going through some stuff and talking about it, and then I wanted my guys to chat. I could have it go, and then they had a good point, so I pause it, and I might not want that audio clip to continue or just start from the beginning because maybe the person was like a minute and a half into it. So that's what's really nice, where you have that continue versus replay, and that's what you get on a few of those ones. It's mainly the on-off. But you can do that really quick with the sounds. And now I can record that to this piece. If I said okay, now I can still click it, and I could rename it whatever I want to name it, Brian's Crappy Sound, or I could change the color and just go to town on there and make it purple. Now my pad, you can't see it very well in the photo, but it's purple. I can also just go ahead and clear it. Yeah, I don't want that. But now, because we have those other options, that's where we have the mixer and the other one. So as you saw, we already had some ducking, sensor, fade in, fade out. So there's a lot of functions in here. So latching, when this press, it's just momentarily, while I'm holding it, where latching keeps it going. So if I do sensor, I can pick the beep tone, or I can do a custom one, beep tone, or I can set a custom sound for it, like watermelon could play every time I do it. Trash talk is pretty cool because it just mutes any of the external audio. So if I have it Bluetooth to a phone, it mutes it there, but it keeps my other channels running and they can all hear each other. Or if I'm using the chat channel, USB 1 chat, it mutes it there. So if I was like playing someone in Call of Duty or on someone on Discord and I want to talk smack about them, I could do that. Or if I need to discuss, if we're going to discuss something on there and don't want, risk of offending or something like that, there's some options I could do there. And, or we can use it as a fun game, like you ask them a question or they think you're asking a question, you keep it going because you're in trash talk. They're answering something else, like, you're asking them their favorite color, and then you move in. And when you hit the trash talk button, you also add on the end, and the color of your underwear. Like, oh, it's green. And so you can have some fun with that. What I really like is the capability to have this fade in, fade out button. So it can exclude the host, which is pretty nice. So the host could keep it, so you could fade out your people talking, all the other channels, and keep the host. The host is always channel 1. So if I hit this, it won't fade out channel 1. If I want everyone to fade out, then what'll happen is it'll fade out and I'll be like, hey, it's a great day. How's it going? And then I can keep talking, and then I'll fade back into existence while I hit it. And I can control that fader. The other cool thing is the back channel. Back channel communication is amazing and entirely super useful. I mean, super duper useful when you're a live streamer or a pod, or bringing live people on a podcast. So right now, if you hold down on the bottom, if I were to show you the bottom, you're listen and mute. If you hold down listen and mute, or hit those two and then hit listen and mute on another, it takes those people out of the mix and they can all hear whoever's talking on channel 1 and can hear each other, but it's out of the main mix. But that's always pretty much to channel 1. With this back channel button, and what's really cool with this back button is I can program 2 people. Like I could say, you know what, with this button, I want only 1 and 3 to be able to do this. So when they hold it, sorry again, need water down here. When I hold that down, I can only talk to number 3 and they won't hear me in the main mix. So if I'm like, dude, stop chomping into the microphone, they ate peanut butter right before that, I could be like, yeah, I'm going to mute you for a second. Finish your peanut butter. And I could hold this button, and like if I do it now, pretty cool, because as I hit it, you guys couldn't hear anything I said because I could only communicate to number 3. If I had switched this and had it maybe on my chat output, then if I switch my microphone to chat, in fact, let's give that a shot. I switched it on my Ecamm Pro to have the chat, and I'm going to mute the main, and I'm going to say, hey, this one I want to include, or I'm going to put number 3 chat also on there. Yeah, because that's the chat icon. So I'm gonna mute this one. And you guys should still be able to hear me because now it's on the chat. Now, if I press this button again, what's cool is it will just keep going because while it's active, I have it going out the chat. So just me in the chat. So just me and the online people can talk. And the other people who are on headphones 2 and 4 would not be able to hear me. Wouldn't have anything going on other than they're probably in the same room. Okay, sorry, I had to reset up on Ecamm. So that's where I can reprogram these, and I can have different buttons then that's like chat to 1 or 1 to 1, 2 to 3, because it doesn't have to be 1. I could just say, well, I guess no, you do always have to force 1 because 1 is important. Hoping maybe in the future on a future firmware you can turn that off so I can let like 2 and 3 chat, especially when people start having side conversations on podcasts. That is never always fun because you're messing around with their stuff, or you're muting them out or fading them down so that there's a dominant voice, because you don't want 4 people talking always at the same time, especially if they're having 2 separate conversations. So that's where it could be nice for that. But I could set up a different panel that says I'm talking to 1 or talking to 2, 3, 4, or all you guys, like all you guys, FYI, quit being dumb or something like that on there. I can kind of mess around and have that working. So, or I can go out to these other channels on here. And then ducking, like I said, will temporarily lower the level of other channels while sound is presented in the host microphone, number 1. So I can put that on there. And if I was playing music through my iPad into here or through my computer, then it would just duck it out. It would just kind of lower it in its volume. So, if I hook up my iPad, which I could do, as I'm talking and I'd hit this button, you would hear me, but you would kind of hear a little bit in the background, which we kind of experimented with when I played the tone a little while ago and had it playing the music bed, and then I hit the ducking and you could hear me continually to talk over it, and it just kind of lowered, and then when I stopped it raised the volume back up. There's your ducking. And then, so like I said, it's whether it's momentary, so when I hit the button it stays on, or how it works for that one, or whether I have to hold the button down for it to do that. Because like I said, right now if I were to do like this one, it's momentary. So, but if I had latching, it holds until I hit the button off. So that's your latching versus momentary. So that just shows you how you can do that with those channels and do that from a button. Otherwise, so that's your mixer. Otherwise, like I said, the effects are pretty straightforward and amazing, and you can mix them too, which is kind of fun because you can put them on different pads and have different ones going. So if I wanted to, I could have, echo. And keep that on. Or I could have
Voice disguise with echo. And reverb. So,
let's turn that one off. And maybe the echo. There we go. So, and I can move that with the dials and stuff too, and set my levels and delay and all that. But what's nice is I can kind of play around with these different ones and mix them together. So I can either put them on different pads or I can put the same one mixed together. Maybe I want a little bit of echo and a little bit of reverb for this voice, or maybe I just want to be like the munchkin or the
Chipmunks. And sing my backing vocal. Or, man,
that really throws you off when it's in your head and you're hearing it, but just there's almost no delay, but it's just slight. But when you hear that, it's better to do that when you don't have it going through your headphones because it'll just throw you off, or you got to get used to it. And then with this one, you have the option of coarse versus fine. So as you can see, coarse does it in 12 or in single semitones, where the other one does it in full. So if I do fine, you'll see how it goes points on here, where if I do it in coarse, it's just one at a time, which just gives you that whole where you
can shift your voice down,
or it can be really high. Or you can way fine tune it in
and then get your voice close, or be neutral. I think that's me, neutral, and then make it back high and then
back low.
So you can program that in and do different things to kind of bring your attention in your stream, which is something I really like. Is something where you can grab attention, especially like, for me, I'd probably do something kind of like
Test. So, cool tip.
Something like that. And if I had that on my button, I could hold that down and be like, pro fact, and then catch their attention. Or if I was getting a little too geeky, which I could be known to do,
I could be in full geek mode.
and with that one, obviously you get a couple different settings from the
robot version.
Or which type. If you turn that on, you can style it a little differently. So you can have a few different robot styles.
So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3.
Or your voice disguise, or the pitch shift, which can sound the same as voice disguise.
Who'da thunk that voice disguise is probably based off a pitch shift, just way easier. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this stuff kind of increase later. Like I said, Megaphone, does that same type of stuff. You can catch people's attention by saying, "Hello, Kmart shoppers," and go that way. Now there's no way to get monetized because I probably use some name I'm not supposed to. Who knows? I'm not anywhere close on that anyway. So, and you can set which channels that turns it on for up here at the top. Right now, that button would turn on for 1, 2, 3, or 4 on there, but maybe I only want it to affect a specific channel on there. So it only does it for 1, but not 2 and 3. So, depending on as they're coming through, I could have it affect different people. Which is nice because if it's on here, I could have my effects one have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 with some cool effects. So if I needed to, I could quickly switch to it. But that's what you can kind of do with the smart pads, not even counting what you can do with MIDI controls. And MIDI, if like I said, if you know MIDI, and for it, this is where you can use it to program in, and as you hit it, it can control different aspects. If you're using something like Ecamm, and even I think OBS can too, but with Ecamm, you can have MIDI controls. I could use this as my camera switcher if I needed to. Now, I use my Stream Deck, and I have the other stuff in here, especially normally. So I don't know that that's really all that needed, but I just wanted to kind of show you what that's like. So that's just kind of showing that base configuration and that setup here. And we've got, like I said, those sound pads that I can bring back through and just see, and you can see how we can move that slider. And then, like I said, we have these virtual sliders. So if I hit this, that's where we can do different processing. So if I had the, select the main as the output device, and I can change some of the stuff and sliders for that. Otherwise, if I tap it, here, I can turn up and down the volume kind of coming in for my styles here. So for main one, or for the chat, you know, what that volume is like, you know, coming back in, or my main two coming in. So I can turn that up and down. Like if I had anything on my computer outputting on there, I could change that, and I can still hit my mute and listen. But if I tap down on the bottom, I can still add effects on those same things the same way. And like I said, if I didn't like that, I could switch some stuff out. So even like I said up here, you can change a few things on your sliders, but I could also still move the faders around and put them on a different one so they're not on a virtual fader. But that kind of just shows walking through this, me quickly just kind of playing around and setting it up. There's more I'm obviously going to need to do. The only other thing I haven't done is to show what this sounds like with both a compressor mic and with the FET heads on here. So let me grab that. At least I thought I had my compressor mic right here. So let me at least throw a FET head on one of these, and then I'll also I don't know that we need to grab the cloud lifter. It sounds about the same. If you guys want me to throw the cloud lifter on there, I can. But I'll throw a FET head on this one, and we'll turn the channel on and off. So that way we can see if there's a noticeable difference on you guys' side. But here, I'm going to switch over. So you guys can hear me on the old RØDECaster. And at that point, I'm going to get a couple things put together. So let me grab this mic and grab a handy dandy FET head, like one of these, which it's just important to know if you're getting the one for dynamic mics or the one for non-dynamic. So this one will say dynamic on it. The other one will say phantom for a condenser. So I used to use this to add just a little bit of power to my condenser, so I used a different one for each style. Let's get the one for the dynamic mic out. See if you guys can tell the difference. If it adds too much theoretical, you know, or too much sound. Pull that one, we'll pull this. So just hooking up some mic cables. Not pretty ones, there we go. And you can put this on the back of your, you can put this on the, either on the back of the mic or on the back of your board. I put it on the back of the mic because I don't want to increase the any of the noise that's coming from the line. So I don't want to, from this cable, if it's in here directly, if it's later in the chain, then it picks up the noise that was in here and then increases it. So I wanted to only do what was on the mic. That's something I was taught a long time ago. And I've just kind of stuck with it. So we're going to plug this in here. Now, in theory, let's see how this one's not showing anything. Probably because there's no phantom power. Test. And then test. Test. 1, 2, 3. All right. So let's get this thing plugged back in over here. All right. here I am talking to myself because you guys couldn't hear me. I had to turn it way down because when it was up all the way, just to let you see, and I was talking about P48 being phantom power. When it was all the way up here, you can tell it just amps out everything and sounds terrible. So to get them the same, I had to bring it down to about here. And then as you can see, the bouncer, if I move over here, even though this is muted, this one you can still see because it shows the pre-fade mic or the line input. So while I have it muted, I have number 1 muted, which is the one that's green right now. If I come back over here, that's where we're at. So I'm going to turn this up all the way so you can hear it. I'm going to turn both up. And I'm going to turn on one at a time. So first, this is the one that's running with the FET head. And we're just going to give 2 seconds of silence. All right. And then this is the other without the FET head. And we're going to give it another 2 seconds of silence. All right. Some of it was me possibly breathing close to it, but from what I can tell, just in my headphones, this other one, not just that, the audio doesn't sound nearly as rich, even though it's got the same processing. If I come over here, they both have the same processing applied right now. They're both in the same effects or same preset. So they're both on studio. And you can see how it kind of fades off, but this definitely isn't giving as clean a tone as I get with this one. I think my voice just sounds a little bit richer and doesn't sound quite like it's been amped up. So I think their claim for that is working pretty good. I haven't, like I said, I haven't tried a condenser mic on here. I'm trying to remember where I set it real quick because I did bring it over. So 1 second. All right, guys. Temporarily switching over to that other mic. So now, because we heard it with the FET head, so we heard that other unit. I'm going to go ahead and open up, I've got an MXL over here. So just a Marshall condenser with a high pass filter built into it, which is it's a nice little microphone that you can get for under $100. I actually liked it with the FET head, and I liked it that way. So I use it with a condenser FET head a lot of times because it pre-boosts a lot of stuff. But we're going to go ahead and trade out mic 1 and go from being a pod mic to a condenser, which automatically turns on that P8. All right. Then we'll switch some audio around. Test. There we go. So here you can kind of see, and you can see the decibels. It looks the same. It comes in really clean without needing anything. Obviously, if we switch over and I show you this one, they're putting in 50 dBs for here to get kind of to the same level. But that's kind of normal because a condenser is powered. But this actually looks pretty good.
I don't think it's adding a whole lot. I mean, I have it way amped, so if I bring it down here, it'll sound quite a bit better, I think. You'll get that kind of radio broadcast voice. And if I turn off my high pass filter, you don't hear a huge, because that processing is doing a pretty good job of it. So if I turn it back on, I don't think it's going over the top. If anything, I could actually bump it up a little bit. But let's just hear again what it sounds like for the noise. And this is just straight. I could still put the FET head on there, but I think the last one was a pretty good indicator of what that's going to sound like. So if anything, a condenser actually might just play it up a bit more, just because of how it's amped up. But let's just see. We'll just pull this all the way up, and then I'll be quiet. That sounds pretty clean to me in these headphones. So with that, I'd say their claim that of not needing a FET head and stuff on there is actually pretty good. In fact, with the pod mic, the FET head definitely added some sound I wasn't overly impressed with. And not that they're bad. FET heads are great. I use them for all sorts of stuff. But for the case with the RØDECaster, yeah, I think it's overkill, and it does a really good job of making it pretty clean to begin with. And I'll go back through and see. But, just out of the box and set up that way, you saw we basically have a show up and running super quick. In fact, let me switch back. I'm going to switch to our normal one, my normal mic. And we're back on the RØDECaster now, the old RØDECaster. But really quick, we were able to get a show up and running. And I'm going to switch back over here. We were able to get there we go. We were able to get a show up and running really quickly. The device up and running really quickly because it has that way to walk through. We walked through a lot of the features and different things you can do with the pads and some opportunities and stuff you guys can do with those. We didn't connect it to anything Bluetooth, but you can kind of see Bluetooth is pretty straightforward, whether you hook it up to monitors or iPhone. What I'm curious and I'm going to test is, from what I understand, you can only connect one at a time. So if it's connected to your monitors, I don't think you can have your phone connected for a source coming in at the same time. That could be firmware changed later, especially if there's enough antenna and bandwidth space. But I think they were focusing really on trying to get the best thing out the door to start with. They could do everything that the current RØDECaster could do and then some. And it definitely is. I'm super excited to play with this. In fact, the rest of the day is probably just going to be me recording stuff, which is funny because I pre-recorded some other semi-live, some other unboxings for some NAND light and a couple other things I was doing. And I almost want to re-record them with the new sound just to do that. But for my other tech day job, I'm going to go and use that. And I'm super excited to try to use this on the podcast. Which if you get a chance, check out Boozy Banter. It's on Spotify and some of the other sources. We put it all the other ones. It's a lot of fun. It gets a little goofy, but it is, so you'll be hearing some changes there. But if you guys have questions or something you want me to test out and try, by all means, let me know. I'm happy to kick the tires on something, kick something in, and show you something on there. But at least you got to see it out of the box, what the exact setup looks like, how you can do a new show, hopefully learned a couple features or a couple settings that you can do inside there and why certain parts might be useful. Maybe you won't find it all that useful at that point. Who knows? But again, I am happy to try anything on the screen or pop it back over if you want to see anything on there. I can even pop the camera off and get it a little closer if need be. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed with those. I just realized there is one thing I got to do. So let's switch this back. So I changed the headphone, or I changed my first mic, but my headphone is still the same color. So I should probably go in to my settings and change the headphone color, which I'm pretty sure is in here under outputs, headphones, and there you go. If I'm going to be green, we're going to be green. We're all the way green. There's 2 shades of green there, so I'm going to go with that one and select it. And then headphone 2, I'm going to switch that puppy to pink. Pinkish purple. So that way I don't lose my mind. Come back to my input 1. Make sure that's still find that funny that for that one. Make sure my color is still set the way I want it. It's funny because it shows it, but that didn't really change the tone of that one very much. Probably because I haven't selected it yet. Well, that's interesting. There we go. It just didn't affect it until I hit the until I hit OK there. There we go. Now it's full on green, the way I like it. So now that those are back to the same, we're set there. But again, like I said, if you guys have questions, otherwise we've been going for an hour and 46 minutes where we opened it all up, did all the fun setup, and did all that cool stuff. I'm obviously going to have to replace, and I guess I'll be selling off my old RØDECaster. But even though it's a great piece of gear, it's not that. I'm getting rid of my Zoom, my L8 too, because I just don't need it. Even though it has some extra music inputs, I'll be pretty well set with this new RØDECaster, the Pro II. But we've been on here for almost 2 hours, going through all of the settings, trying all the stuff, trying it with and without a head so you can hear what that sounds like, going through pretty much every button and setting that I could find on there, showing the software and the firmware update, which went pretty fast. So if you guys don't have any more questions or have any other questions, I'd be curious if you guys ordered your own, or if from watching this, if you've decided to turn around and order your own. I'd also be curious if you did order yours, if you got your cover faster than me, because my cover hasn't shipped yet. I'd love to get that on there because I don't like getting dust down into the sliders or into the faders, because that can affect them over time. So for a couple days, it's probably going to live in plastic and in my case in between. But if you guys found something useful, please just remember that you could like and subscribe if you want to our channel on Glitch 2600 on YouTube. We're all over the place there. Obviously, we do the buy me a coffee type stuff if you want training and stuff like that. But really, I just love teaching and trying out new things. If you guys have questions on stuff, whether it's audio, video, photography, videography, which is audio, video, or computers, that's what I do. Like I said, we are your friendly host through all things geekery. So we love your questions. Just comment on there. We come and track them down. We will be having our happy hours and our geek outs happening again here soon. And those geek outs are when you can jump on. You don't have to do it live, but we go live and just answer whatever questions people have across the board. Password managers, what type of camera to get, or why would you want an 85 millimeter lens for certain photography versus a 16 millimeter? Why do we use sometimes those wide ones for live streaming? Drone video, like different types of video. What's 4K versus 1K/2K, 8K that's out? Do you really need a 5K monitor compared to a 4K Or is that mostly marketing and viewing distance? Stuff like that is what we talk about, along with many other things. Which type of mic, a condenser versus other? Do you want a laser printer versus an inkjet? Why you might want some stuff for certain things. So that's our geek outs, and you can always catch those. Otherwise, we do our glitch bites. Normally it's not 2 hours, it's 15 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes that you can break down. We just check out different new gear, either as unboxings or we do quick tips. So again, if you have a question, you can jump on those lives. You can put it on our comments. We'll find it and we'll try to answer them for you, either in a live stream or directly. But if you guys had a great time, please just let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to let you guys get back to your day, and hopefully if you ordered your own and it's coming today, hopefully you get a chance to go play with it and you have as much fun as I'm having with it right now. I'm going to go play around with pitch shift for like 5-10 hours and play around and just be stupid. But thanks for joining me. Thanks for jumping on, and hopefully we'll catch you again here soon. All right.